Hi, welcome to Sociological Lens. I am Dr. Dilsora Fozilova. I named today's lecture as Weaponizing Fear, How Trump's immigration rhetoric fueled a campaign of control. So as we discussed recently, in recent decades, ideology-based politics changed by fear-based politics. So today we are going to explore a critical aspect of modern political strategy, the use of fear as a tool for control and influence by looking at Donald Trump's immigration rhetoric during his presidential campaign in 2016. This lecture will focus on how Trump effectively harnesses fear, particularly the fear of immigration, to galvanize support, shape public opinion, and ultimately win the presidency or win the game. Throughout his campaign, Trump portrayed immigrants, especially those from Mexico and predominantly Muslim countries, as threats to national security, the economy, and American culture. By framing immigration as a danger, he crafted a narrative that played on deep rooted anxieties about society, jobs, and identity. His speeches and policies often emphasize themes of invasion, crime, and terrorism, tapping into the public sphere to build an image of himself as an only hero or candidate who could protect the country or make the America great again. So I will share my PowerPoint and we will discuss about how he uses fear as a political tool in his campaign addressing immigration in the USA. Although some people argue that Trump was very good with economy and economy grew in his presidency, I still view him as a manipulator who uses fear as a political tool. So fear is a powerful political tool often used to manipulate and control populations, shape public opinion, or justify certain actions. Politicians, regimes, or interest groups may invoke fear to create a sense of urgency or threat, whether real or exaggerated, to rally support, consolidate power, or distract people from existing issues. By framing certain groups, ideologies, or external threats as dangerous, leaders can justify repressive measures, limit civil liberties, or cultivate nationalism. Fear can also create division as people are encouraged to view others, whether immigrants, minorities, or political opponents, as threats to their safety or way of life. This tactic is frequently used during times of crisis or instability, where fear driven policies can appear as necessary for protection, even if they undermine democratic values or foster inequality. In this way, fear serves as a means of control, steering public behavior and decision making towards goals that may benefit those in power. So one of the concepts or one of the things Donald Trump used in his campaign was portraying immigrants as threat to national security. So during his presidency, Trump frequently portrayed immigrants, particularly those from Latin America and Muslim majority countries, as a significant threat to national security. He used rhetoric that framed immigrants as criminals, drug traffickers, and potential terrorists, emphasizing themes of violence and lawlessness. For example, In speeches, and of course, he tweeted all the time. In tweets, he repeatedly highlighted crimes committed by undocumented immigrants, often inflating statistics or using isolated incidents to suggest that immigration, especially illegal immigration, was inherently dangerous. Trump's administration also implemented policies like Muslim travel ban and the construction of a border, like the wall with Mexico, arguing that these measures were necessary to protect the country from terrorism, crime, and economic instability. This portrayal reinforced a fear based narrative, stoking public anxiety about immigration and positioning himself as a defender of national security, despite critics arguing that his approach was more about political gain than addressing genuine security concerns. And there is the quote from him: "We have to stop the Muslims from coming into this country until we know what's going on." So he's just looked at Muslims as inherently dangerous. This all, of course, this played a very important role because people were already traumatized and they had that fear from 9/11 in their bloods. So this was for Trump's advantage for sure. Muslims were indeed one of the Trump's primary targets in his early portrayal of immigrants as a threat to national security. His campaign rhetoric and subsequent policies often associated Muslims with terrorism and extremism. One of his most notable actions was the introduction of the Muslim ban, an executive order that restricted travel from several predominantly Muslim countries, justified under the guise of preventing terrorism. In his speeches, Trump frequently linked Islam and national security threats, suggesting that allowing Muslim immigrants or refugees into the USA also would lead to an increase in terrorist activities, despite a lack of supporting evidence. This rhetoric fueled Islamophobic sentiments and positioned Muslims, both immigrants and American citizens, as potential dangers to the country. By targeting Muslims, Trump was also to tap into post 9/11 anxieties and frame his harsh immigration stance as essential for national protection, while critics argued that it was rooted in prejudice and xenophobia rather than actual security concern. And his another rhetoric, like a piece of rhetoric, was about drugs and rapists and these people being criminals. He uses this, I quote, "They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists." So Trump infamously made this remark during the launch of his 2015 presidential campaign, where he broadly characterized Mexican immigrants as criminals and dangerous to American society. He stated, "They're bringing drugs," I'm quoting, "they're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists." And some, I assume, are good people. So he's just making nonsense with his speeches, of course, casting immigrants, particularly those crossing the southern border, as a threat to public safety. His statement was part of his broader strategy to frame immigration, especially from Latin America, as a national security issue. By emphasizing these negative stereotypes, Trump stoked fear and anxiety, suggesting that undocumented immigrants were responsible for widespread criminal activities in America. His rhetoric ignored the complex realities of immigration and the fact that numerous studies have shown that immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than native-born citizens. Nevertheless, this framing became a cornerstone of his immigration policy, which focused heavily on border security, deportation, and building a wall as he continued to paint immigrants as dangerous to American society. Donald Trump also frequently portrayed immigrants not only as security risks, but also as economic threats to American workers. He argued that both legal and undocumented immigrants took jobs away from US citizens, particularly those in lower income or blue collar sectors. Throughout his presidency and campaign, he claimed that immigrants were driving down wages, overburdening public resources like healthcare and education, and contributing to economic inequality by competing for jobs. His administration pushed for restrictive immigration policies such as limiting visas and increasing deportations under the justification that protecting American workers required reducing the numbers of immigrants entering the labor market. Trump's emphasis on America first, for example, economics included a focus on curbing immigration to prioritize native-born citizens, employment, and economic security. However, many economists and studies challenge this claim, arguing that immigrants, in fact, contribute significantly to the US economy by filling essential labor gaps, starting businesses, and paying taxes. Nonetheless, Trump's framing of immigrants as economic threats helped mobilize his base, particularly among workers who felt left behind by globalization and economic shift. He said, I quote, "They are taking our jobs, they are taking our money." By portraying immigrants as economic competitor for people, Trump aimed to galvanize voters who felt economically displaced by globalization and other things going in society at this time. So Trump often used this kind of rhetoric to make people feel unsafe, to make people feel that they need him to save from this kind of immigration dangers. Also, he talked about the need for a border wall, and he started up that process. Trump made the construction of a border wall along the US-Mexico border central promise of his 2016 presidential campaign. He presented it as a crucial solution to illegal immigration in a way to safeguard national security. He argued that the physical barrier was necessary to stop the flow of undocumented immigrants, drugs, and criminals from entering the country, framing the wall as the matter of both safety and sovereignty. Trump's rhetoric painted the southern border as a gateway for threats, and he claimed that without that wall, the US would continue to face economic strain, crime, and social instability. Despite opposition from various people, from critics who pointed out the financial and practical limitation of a wall, as well as data showing that much illegal immigration occurs through legal entry, points, or visa overstays. Trump maintained that wall was essential to protecting American citizens and enforcing border control in America. So why Trump argued with this kind of stuff? I quote, "We need to build a wall and Mexico will pay for it." Of course, Mexico will not pay for it. And the wall became a metaphor for protecting American sovereignty. The portrayal was like America was invaded by these immigrants. Now America needs sovereignty, and the wall is the metaphoric of protection for American safety. So why he makes such claims? What are the reasons for such claims? And of course, Trump in his campaign had to find a way to appeal to nationalism, and because that was his stronger side. Trump's rhetoric capitalized on growing sense of nationalism and white supremacy in the USA, and the belief that America needed to protect itself from outsiders. Of course, this is coming from the historical experiences, like America, bringing African Americans, and then the being number one in the world for immigration. His focus on America first resonated with voters who felt disillusioned by internationalism, global trade agreements, and foreign policy interventions. And also there was, and this is what we are trying to study in this class, there was cultural anxieties, and Trump had to exaggerate his anxieties and fears to become a hero, so to offer hand to people. Many of Trump's supporters feared the cultural changes brought about by immigration. The increasing diversity of American society was seen as a challenge to traditional, predominantly white American values. And by Trump portraying immigrants as dangerous, he exaggerated this feeling. By focusing on immigrants as a cultural threat, Trump appealed to the voters who were concerned about losing their sense of national identity. And economic displacement, always there is misinformation about people taking away, the immigrants taking people's jobs, or that kind of stuff. In areas hard hit by deindustrialization, particularly in the Rust Belt, there was a fear that immigrants were exacerbating economic problems. Trump's framing of immigrants as economic competition played directly to the anxieties of those who had job anxieties, who had economic fears, right? Insecurities about their financial futures. So those people needed hero, and of course Trump created hero from himself to save this kind of voters. Fear was overall a key element for Trump's campaign. It was a key strategy in mobilizing voters who felt anxious about the future, whether it's about culture, whether it's about economy, or about drugs and rapists and other stuff. Trump used fear not just to highlight, to perceive dangers posed by immigrants, but also to position himself as the candidate who could protect the country. This fear-based rhetoric portrayed immigrants as scapegoaters, Scapegoats. Immigrants were often blamed for a wide array of problems, from economic stagnation to creating a common enemy. They were portrayed as drug dealers. They were portrayed as being very bad for people's families. And this year around, he's portraying them as they are danger for the animals as well. So he sometimes does not make sense, but somehow knows how to galvanize people's fears. Also, he appealed to people by, better or not, by offering simple solutions to complex problems. Often, social problems are complex, and we need complex way of addressing them. Somebody coming out and offering very simple solutions like white and black often appeals people, like it's like a religion. The religion offers white and black solutions to complex problems. Proposals like the border wall offered voters a simple, visible solution to the complex issue of immigration. Although it's not really a solution, it seemed like a solution. This reinforced a sense of control over perceived threats, making Trump's campaign promises more attractive to people. And also, because of this exaggeration and created fear by political nominees, created moral panic in society. So, as you know, that in the process of moral panic, people needs heroes. Somebody wants to save them. By focusing on isolated cases of immigration, crime, or terrorism, Trump was able to create a sense of urgency in crisis. When people feel a sense of urgency and crisis, when they feel moral panic, they need somebody. They can't really, think rationally. They need a hero. This moral panic was not based on statistical evidence, since immigrants commit crimes at lower rates than native born citizens, but rather on an emotional appeal to the fear and insecurities of people. And also, otherness is a very big issue, or very effective political tool to galvanize people. When you create that somebody as an enemy and you are on the side of us, it just creates closeness. Trump framed the election as a battle for real Americans and outsiders who threatened the country's well being. This binary view resonated with voters who saw themselves as part of a shrinking, marginalized demographics of American society. So, as an outcome, we can say that Trump's strategy worked, and it just working even this time somehow. And as you can see, still 50% people, or more or less, is towards Trump's presidency. Trump's strategy of playing on fear was highly effective then, and playing on fear is highly effective in any times. He was able to tap into the frustrations and insecurities of large people. So by offering to fix these problems, Trump successfully mobilized these voters to the polls. So in conclusion, Trump's use of fear regarding immigration was central to his 2016 campaign. And I think it's still central to his 2024 campaign today. His arguments about immigrants as threats to national security, the economy, the American culture resonated with voters who were already anxious about these issues. And even today, he is appealing to people by exaggerating this kind of fears. By amplifying these fears and providing simple solutions, Trump was able to galvanize a base of support and carried him to victory in 2016. And, this is the perfect time to talk about this stuff. Today, we can see that Trump is still using this kind of rhetoric to play in his game in the 2024 campaign. And I sometimes wonder that people do not understand that the fears he's exaggerating is to manipulate them. And this was the perfect time to talk about that. And thank you for watching this. I'll see you in our next videos. Bye-bye.